Go ahead. Go ahead, Mama. Go ahead. So,
Well, anyway, now there was a place to stay, and he could come over when he had time off. He could come. He could come home.
and they were okay
between.
with him coming and staying. You
He could come and stay with me
in your room and all
at
that.
well, he came to visit when I was at Ruth's, but I had no place to stay at the time. I don't remember him ever staying. He just came to visit over.
Okay.
But the beautiful thing was when I was expecting Anne. It was now 9 months, and they were going up they had a beach cabin, but their cabin was up a little hill, and they said, I don't think we'll leave Marie at home.
This is the Sweezies.
Yeah, this is Sweezy. We're back to Sweezy. We'll leave Marie at home. She can kind of take care of the house. And she and her friend and Bonnie went up to the house. Well, I decided to vacuum, and I bent down to vacuum, and something happened. And I had already made arrangements. My neighbor lady, I had a neighbor lady that was a family. She had 2 children, because here I lived with a woman that was single, and on this side of the house, on this side, there were 2 single old women, and I was just kind of isolated in a little place. But I had made arrangements with this lady. If I would need to go to the hospital, I could call her, and she'd take me, because the hospital was close in, about a mile. So here I ruptured my memories.
Mopping?
And lo,
You were mopping?
I vacuumed.
You were vacuuming?
Something, yeah, anyway. And they were gone. See, I was now alone.
Right.
But for some reason, the Spirit sent Dan home. Just about that time when I would have had to call the
Okay, he comes in the door about the time you're going into labor.
He came home. He had time, apparently, between two jobs. He came home. He came home without me knowing that he was on his way home. He came home and took me to the hospital.
So he's driving a car at this point.
Uh-huh.
Cars from the...
He did, because we didn't buy a car until we came home. Sorry,
So this
we
was
bought a car to come home with.
This was a CPS car that
Apparently.
they gave him because he had to drive around?
Right.
Okay.
He had a car. So anyways, here we are. We are now at the hospital. That's Anne. And he was able to, he stayed all night. He was able to stay, apparently he had a weekend off in between. So, but then I went back to Sweeney until I got
So he was there he was there with you when Anne was born?
Huh?
He was there in the hospital with you when Anne was born?
Yes.
Oh, good, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was there with me.
Okay. And did they keep...
And not only that, he's always also with me when... See, with Anne, that was so spectacular, because I was so small that physically, that the doctor said it would be good if I didn't lose any more weight, because it would be too difficult to give birth. Well, hey, my babies were like Kate's. Hey, like the Amish. They say, catch the baby. Anyway, here I was in the hospital, like with Anne, and I was ruptured my memories. I was not having any pain or anything, and I actually went to sleep. 6 o'clock in the morning, something was happening. Can you imagine? They talk about having babies, that they have to struggle 10, 12 hours in labor, and here you wake up with the baby moving, and you holler. You don't even have enough sense to reach for the nerve and for the light. I'm laying there calling, nurse, nurse, and she heard me. She was in my area, she heard me. And of course, when they come in, then they go, whoa, that's wrong. But you see, now they let you have your baby stay. You have a birthing room. Now then they took you out to the wherever they
With
took
gin
her.
stirrups and all that.
Anyway, that's what, and then I stayed with Ruth till then. And I went to the rich lady's house, and then I went to Francis, and I stayed with Francis until I got pregnant with David, and then I had David out there.
Okay, hang on. So, did you breastfeed? Did you breastfeed Anna? Did you breastfeed us?
Do we what?
Did you breastfeed us?
Oh yeah.
We were breastfed.
Well, of course, that was a big thing because they had too many babies. And even in Ransom, which was an outlying area, with Nesbitt Memorial Hospital, they would have 20 to 30 babies a day. This was a coal mining region. They would have that many babies a day that the baby clothes and everything were ragged, and this was war, let me tell you, this was war.
Okay, so then you come home, and then you went to Francis's house, and that's really out in the country. That's not, and I mean, we're talking about you can't walk to the store. You got to drive to the store. You live in the country, and so you stay there. Anne's born.
Till Anne was only she must have been about, by that time she might have been 6 months. Anyway, I stayed there then till David was born.
Okay, so hang on here. So Father got to come and see you. He would come, once you got to the Francis's house, how often was he coming to see you? Like every 2 weeks?
He still was only between,
Would you see him twice a week, twice a month?
Only in between here and there. He was not.
So maybe once a month you'd see him?
Yeah.
He'd try to see you at least once a month,
he tried
right?
to see me, yeah. In Wilkes-Barre, when he had in Denison, where he was a driver, he had to come to town, do shopping. He could come in and see me.
Right.
But these other places, he wasn't scheduled.
Because he was a little bit north of you.
Yeah, he wasn't scheduled. He couldn't do that.
So then David's birthday is, what's David's birthday? March
10th.
David is.
That's interesting.
March
she was
10th.
11th. She was that same time I was being a
Say
regular.
March, let's see,
He was always
December, January, February, March, okay, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February. So you got pregnant in July with David.
I was visiting mother.
So that was in the summer. You got pregnant in July. And that would be, David and Ann are what? They're less than 2 years apart?
They what?
How far are David and Ann apart?
Just 18 months.
18 months. Okay, so.
See,
Okay.
Ann was just.
When did you stop being a housekeeper at the Francis's and just live in? When Ann was.
I don't remember that.
Was it after you got pregnant with David or not?
I know. I only know that Anne wasn't very old when I went to Francis because had a terrible. It's one of those awful experiences. Our room was upstairs, and I had put her down upstairs to sleep. And they used to say, "Oh, let them cry themselves to sleep." And that baby upstairs started crying. And of course, it was my little old baby. And all of a sudden I said, I have to go check this baby, because they used to say, let them cry themselves. I had a bed that had these things. She was crying, but she had pushed herself up that her little head was hanging. I saved my baby. I've had, the angel of the Lord, it's all the time, strange things for me when I was just on the verge. I always said, they said the angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear him. I always said, angel of the Spirit was there to do for me.
Okay, so David is, because you're living at the Francis's house, you get pregnant in July, so you're there, and then in March, what's David's birthday? What year is his birth year?
March.
He's what? He's 40. He's 40.
He's March 10th, but she's,
But 40,
Anna's
he's
40,
45. Is he 45?
yeah, Anna's 43 and he's in
Anna's,
45.
Ann was,
They're just 18 months apart.
Ann's 1943, and David
and
is...
then the girl that Mrs. France hired was going to take care of Ann when I went to the hospital. And then Mrs. France did the most unusual. She got mumps. And so they wouldn't let the baby go downstairs. Dan had to get, all he could do is he got Jean, his sister Jean wasn't working. He got Jean to come and take care of Ann. And poor Annie didn't know anybody but Mrs. France and this lady.
How do you spell her last name? Mrs. Is it Francis or Mrs. Franz? F-R-A-N-Z?
Mrs. France, I don't know.
F-R-A-N-Z?
It's F-R-A-N-C, just
Okay.
F-R-A-N
Okay. So Aunt Jean,
took care of Ann
so this is when you were going to go have David.
when I was in the hospital.
She comes up from Lancaster County, from Columbia, because she's living with her mom. Or she's not married yet, right?
No.
She's living with her mom in Columbia. And she comes up to stay at the house and take care of Ann for 2 weeks maybe, or...
No, they used to be in the hospital 10 days. When you had a baby, you were in the hospital 10 days. So whatever she did, but I guess she cried most of the time.
Jean?
And
Or Ann did.
when I think of that, when I think of it, put a baby in a strange... And then downstairs were Mrs. France and this lady and her I forget her name. They were down there, and she wanted to go down and see, and they wouldn't let her go down. Can you imagine the agony that went on?
Because they treated you like a daughter.
Like a daughter, yeah.
So the little...
See what they did when they even gave him a rocking chair.
So they treated her like a granddaughter.
I had it here for all this years, and Ann had it, but when
that little one we used to have?
Yeah, when Janet had her little Sydney, we gave it to her because eventually, they had to find a place, and we wanted it to be a place. But yeah, they gave her. We put that in top of the car that he bought. They said it won't take you at the edge of the town. Well, when he put his hand on it and prayed, it moved. It took us all the way to Minnesota. And he put the little rocking chair on top.
That little wooden one that used to be around here was Ann's rocking chair that this Mrs. France had bought for her.
They gave it they gave the Francis. Yeah, the Francis.
So,
the Francis, it was real sweet. This is how that France. You must have already. This is how that gal looked that I stayed.
Oh, this is Mrs. Sweezy. Hang on, we'll look at that in just a second. Okay, so now you have David. You're still living at the Francis house.
And 3 months, so the war is over and he's discharged.
How long after David was the war over with?
3 months.
Okay, so David.
David looks the picture we looked like.
Okay.
David looked like he was going to make it. He was all that moving and stuff, and I was breastfeeding him, and he wasn't doing. He looks a scrawny little thing.
Okay, and then at that point you move back to War Road, and he goes back to... When
we left Pennsylvania, he had a job with the creamery in Crookston.
Oh, so he didn't go back to War Road. He went to Crookston and that was